Should a leather purse cost $12,000? What makes a brand luxury versus trendy? Is it possible to be so popular that a brand's virality comes into conflict with its own ethics? Are dupes ethical? Or are they actually just a reflection of a larger entitlement problem? These are the questions I had when I was thrown really deep into this rabbit hole of the Hermes game, quota bags, and dupes. And I discovered something. Hermes has a problem, a big problem, and that antitrust lawsuit against them in California might just be the beginning. First off, some disclosures. I don't own Hermes, okay? I've never shopped at Hermes. I met a tailor who worked for Hermes a few years ago, and he was lovely. We were Facebook friends for a while, but that's it. Like, my opinion on Hermes before researching this video was that it was just some luxury brand that made expensive leather purses, and it's not like terribly different than Louis Vuitton. But I was wrong. I was really wrong. They're very different, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Part 1, entitled Brats. On March 19th, 2024, Tina Cavallari and Mark Lanoga, both of California, filed a class action complaint against Hermes for implementing, quote, a scheme to exploit this market power by requiring customers to purchase other ancillary products from the defendants before they will be given an opportunity to purchase a Birkin handbag.
I got a nice Birkin bag!
Yes! While their lawsuit is based on U.S. antitrust laws, according to the internet, what they're actually suing Hermes over is lovingly called the Hermes game. The game is simple. According to people on the internet, in order to be offered a quota bag that is a Birkin or a Kelly, the most desirable bags of like all time, or in this case, the pretty princess crown, you must spend the equivalent of that bag's cost in store, $10,000 to $20,000. Ooh, I landed it like right on the edge. We're just gonna do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put one back. Well, you son of a bitch. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, I guess. Most Birkins and Kellys seem to retail for around 7,000 to 8,000 euros in France and around $10,000 to $12,000 in the United States. It's their resale value because they hold on to their value that makes them so much more expensive. Or if you're buying it from the store, when they're made out of more rare leathers like crocodile or ostrich. Now, since Hermes doesn't advertise their prices or even sell those bags online, if you were to go and Google like Birkin bag, you're gonna see bags listed for upwards to $300,000. And that's not normal. Just FYI, it's not normal. Now, in addition to just like buying stuff, people on the internet also suggest sucking up to your sales associate or SA, which I find that really weird. I find calling people SAs, I find that odd. It gives me the ick. I'm gonna say it because that's what they say, but I don't like it. Texting them, visiting them, and like just pestering these people in general, because obviously squeaky wheel gets the grease and all that jazz. After a certain amount of time and money has passed hands, you will get the magical phone call or text that there's something special for you at your local Hermes store. And ta-da! Your dream bag has arrived. Thank God you spent all of that money to prove your loyalty over the year or so it took to get the bag. Now listen, if you're really invested in the game, you'll request another bag immediately, and thus the cycle continues. But is that actually how the game goes? Is it even real? I've read stories and I've seen videos of people booking their first ever Hermes leather bag appointment, and they will get offered a Kelly or a Birkin. Now, in the lawsuit, the plaintiffs wrote, each Birkin handbag is handcrafted from the finest leather by experienced artisans in France. The manufacturing of a single Birkin handbag requires many hours of an artisan's time. The intensive labor and craftsmanship and high-quality leathers required make the Birkin handbag difficult to produce and expensive.
It starts with 30 distinct cuts of leather and can take 20 hours to complete. 4 hours for just the handle.
All right, I hope you all are ready for a quick math lesson with Hermes and Abby's School of Math. I also didn't realize this was for music, but work with me here. According to Hermes's 2023 Universal Registration document, which is freely available online and lays out all of Hermes's business statistics, goals, and finances, they offer 50,000 different products for sale, and 74% of those products are made in France, including all of their leather goods. So we're talking bags, wallets, keychains, little doodads, saddles, and even furniture. Now, based on their data and my calculations, I estimate that they have between 4,000 to 6,000 leather workers in total, but only 2,000 to 3,000 are actually qualified to make the Kelly or Birkin bags, because it takes 4 or more years of additional training to be able to make those bags to Hermes' standards, and only half of Hermes' total employees have been with the company for over 5 years. The math is mathing, and the math says that. Ta-da. Additionally, it takes anywhere between 20 and 30 hours to complete a Kelly or Birkin bag. Considering France's work hours and the government mandated time off, this means that one artisan could make between 47 to 70 Birkins a year if they made nothing else, took no additional time off for like sick leave or maternity leave or anything like that, and like they were just like grinding out those Birkins. Just making the shit out of Birkins to the point of burnout. And of course, also ignoring the 22 other different bag styles and all of the other leather products that Hermes offers. This approach goes completely against Hermes' business ethics and their humanist approach to how they treat their employees. I don't know about you, but as someone who is a maker, if all I did was the same bag day in and day out, like I would get so fucking sick of it. To me, it feels safe to assume that there are not that many Birkins or Kellys being produced a year. I mean, to hit 20,000 Birkins, 3,000 artisans would have to make 6 of those bags perfectly a year. Okay, so I know that right now, with everything going on, a conversation about purses might feel a bit odd. Though I do promise that we are actually talking about bigger topics than just leather purses. If you stick with me, I promise it'll all come together. For those of you, though, who are like me and you're starting to feel anxious or just overwhelmed about what is happening in the world right now, which is, by the way, a very normal and logical feeling, might I suggest considering therapy? Within 48 hours of answering a brief questionnaire, BetterHelp, which is the sponsor of this video, can set you up with one of their 30,000 plus licensed therapists. They'll give you someone to speak to who can help you work through your emotions, your nerves, your anxieties, create action plans and steps to help you feel more secure in an increasingly unstable world, and frankly, just help you get through it one day at a time, because that's sometimes the best that we can do. Now, the best thing is BetterHelp is completely online, which gives you a lot more flexibility on when and how you'd like to communicate with your therapist, whether it's by video or phone call or just messaging, because like not everyone has access to in-person therapy, and frankly, it's unfair to assume so. If you're thinking about starting therapy, consider BetterHelp. Just use the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Abby and you'll get a 10% off discount for your first month. Thank you again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. All right, so now back to the game. Part of its lore consists of people sharing stories about coy sales associates who will state that the last bag has been sold if you were to walk into the store and ask to buy a quota bag like off the street, or even possibly during your first shopping appointment. And it's all part of the ruse, right? Because there are usually Birkins and Kellys on display in these stores with a not for sale or display only sign next to them, thus obviously proving that the associate is lying. Duh. And as someone who used to work in retail until very recently, I find this hilarious. Because honest to God, just telling someone that an item is just sold out, even if it's not true, to me is the least confrontational way to communicate to someone who may or may not be a serious customer that this product isn't available to them. Could you imagine how long it would take to explain to someone that even though this is an Hermes store, they don't have the Hermes bag they want in stock? It's already difficult for us just as a society because we're already used to instant gratification and the industrialization of manufacturing to understand that there isn't going to necessarily be a back room filled with bags, and that there only might be 26 bags made a week. And out of those 26, they have to go all over the world to different stores. Hermes operates 294 stores, 130 in Asia and the Pacific, 9 in the Middle East, 97 in Europe, and 58 in the Americas. Okay, and that is Central, North, and South America. Now, do you all want to guess how much of Hermes' total revenue the Americas bring in? 19%. 19. And that's not just the United States. That 19% is this whole half of the world, okay? France alone makes up 9% of Hermes' total revenue, as I have never gone shopping at Hermes because obviously, and I've never worked there, I can't really speak to how much truth surrounds like the mythology of the Hermes game, right? But when half of the world makes up only 19% of a company's revenue, why would they concern themselves with keeping quota bags in stock? It's not where the money is. The money's in Asia. This also explains why it is easier to get a quota bag in France, because these bags are only made like a couple hours away from any store. It's a lot easier to get those bags into that store than it is to ship them across the Atlantic Ocean. Plus, sales in France are going to be a lot more impactful to the local economy. And so it also makes sense that Hermes, a company that is so deeply invested in France's economy, which we'll get more into later, would prioritize those stores instead of like Houston, Texas, or Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, but between the lawsuits claim that, quote, the desirability of an Hermes Birkin handbag, a symbol of rarefied wealth such that not even a global pandemic can dull demand for it, and the broad internet acceptance of this Hermes game, we can begin to see how Hermes has lost control of the narrative surrounding its ethical business practice and inspirational storytelling. And it's being spun into something a lot more ugly and more reflective of fast fashion. Plus, the reputation of those who are consumers of the brand and claim to be fans of the brand is that of greedy overconsumers. The subreddit, the Hermes game, was created on January 28th, 2022, and today it boasts 31,000 users and is ranked in the top 4% of all subreddits. They discuss all things related to Hermes and the game, between purchases, texting their SAs, and panicking about a missed call or a text from them. Like, y'all, my social anxiety could never, ever. Oof. Now, on TikTok, there are over 24,000 videos with the hashtag Hermes unboxing. And this past Christmas, someone treated themselves to a 500,000 pound Hermes advent calendar. $500,000. There are creators who have built entire platforms showcasing their Hermes hauls with piles of the iconic orange boxes consisting of tens of thousands of dollars of product just thrown onto a bed or a table. On Instagram, you can follow Tanya Antonikova, who sells courses and guidebooks on how to score your quota bag. By the way, just some quick goss between us girly pops. The Hermes game subreddit hates her. One of my favorite Hermes-related TikTok accounts is Love Luxury, which is an Hermes reseller in London and Dubai. And they produce like Pawn Star show level videos showcasing customers coming in to buy an Hermes bag because
I have been in waiting list for 6 months for Hermes bag, and I won't buy today Birkin.
Don't care how, I want it now.
Or they're selling off their collection because
I have to pay my credit card.
Of course. £50,000?
Yeah.
okay. What all of these accounts or communities have in common is their desire to aggressively acquire Hermes products.
Buy me Prada, Balenciaga.
And then weaponize those goods to prove that they have, like the lawsuit states, a symbol of rarefied wealth. It's like No Face and Spirited Away, except No Face is bougie and only eats Hermes.
What would you like? Just name it.
Now, what I don't see, even by those who present themselves as connoisseurs and deep fans of the brand, is actually any sort of understanding or comprehension of Hermes's actual business ethics and practices. The best that they can say is that
they're handmade and expertly crafted.
Well, first off, newsflash, if something is stitched together, it's handmade. And that includes the dupes or the clothing from Shein. It includes fast fashion. All of our clothes are handmade because hands are still involved in the process of making clothing, even if a machine is doing the stitching, okay? Recently, there was actually a performance art project to highlight how much hands are involved in the making of a single item of clothing. The clothes that you're wearing now as you watch this video, they were touched by hundreds of people all over the world. Now, many of the Hermes goods, like the purses and bags, are hand sewn, and that is fundamentally different than handmade. To hand sew something means that your hands actually did the stitching. This is rare, and it requires a great deal of skill to do well. And anything that is hand sewn should cost a lot of money, okay?
Did I stutter?
Now, in addition to just hand sewing like clothes, hand sewing leather requires twice, if not thrice as much work because you have to actually hand punch the stitch holes before you sew them. And purses, like the ones Hermes makes, are made with a saddle stitch, which requires using 2 needles at once. So it's not like it's sewing clothing. I can't even do a saddle stitch, guys. And I literally wrote books on hand sewing. That is a specialized skill set all on its own. So with that in mind, there will probably be some of you all that are not gonna like what I'm about to say here, but I have to say it. And that is that Hermes bags are worth their price. And frankly, to be able to buy something that is entirely hand sewn with the best materials available for just a few $1,000s, because the bags actually range between $3,000 to $12,000 retail, fair. Because look, when you buy something from a company, you're not just paying for the labors and raw materials, even though videos on this platform will claim that you can make an Hermes bag with the same exact leather from the same tannery.
The estimated manufacturing cost to Hermes is $800.
No, you can't. They might want you to believe that. That's not true, okay? It's not true. When you purchase something from any store, any retailer, any brand, all right, you're helping fund overhead like payroll and utility bills, benefits packages, charitable causes, and so much more. So that's why knowing where your money is going is one of the biggest discussion points in the fast fashion debate. People don't just dislike fast fashion companies because they make shitty clothes. It's because they treat their employees badly, and their existence has a negative impact on our environment. And this is why the debate around Hermes dupes is important. Hermes stands out and away from all other luxury brands because of their ethics. But Hermes has failed themselves and their customers because of mistakes in their marketing. And as a result, they've opened themselves up to lawsuits. Part 2. Hermes is not just a luxury brand.
People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe.
Hermes was founded in 1837 by Thierry Hermes, a harness and saddle maker, which means he was, just so we're all clear here, a very typical middle-class tradesman. He was obviously extremely good, though, at what he did. He even won an award for his work at the Universal Exhibition in Paris in 1867, and from there the company's reputation grew. Eventually his son took over, and then his grandson, and today, so for almost 200 years, Hermes is still run and majority owned by the same family. Now, Pierre-Alexis Dumas, the current artistic director of Hermes, is the direct descendant of Thierry Hermes. Throughout the 20th century, Hermes grew and pushed innovation. They were one of the first brands in France to adopt the zipper, and in the 1930s, they designed a bag that would eventually be called the Kelly bag, which is one of the quota bags, named after the actress and princess Grace Kelly. And then in 1984, Pierre-Alexis' father, Jean-Louis, actually designed the infamous Birkin bag for the actress Jane Birkin. You notice how both of those bags are named after celebrities? Interesting. In addition to being open to just like adopting new technologies and being very forward-thinking and creative, one of Hermes's biggest driving forces is actually the preservation and protection of handcraft and traditional artisanal trades.
Parce qu'on est vraiment là pour apprendre un métier et pas des tâches.
Quote, since 1837, the group has remained true to its values of freedom, demanding craftsmanship, savoir-faire, authenticity, and responsible growth. Its integrated craftsmanship business model places quality and sustainability at the center. This puts their manufacturing methodologies in direct conflict with their product's popularity and the public's rapidly increasing demand for their products. I remember actually hearing about Birkins and like Birkin dupes for the first time in the early 2000s. And I don't know if it was because of Gilmore Girls or the Sex and the City clip, because it kind of came out around the same time. But I like distinctly remember this discussion in magazines about like there being a 10 to 20 year waiting list to get a Birkin, and like magazines would like excitedly report on which celebrity finally got a hold of a Birkin. Okay, like it was crazy.
It's 4,000.
I know.
And there's a waiting list.
I assumed.
5 years.
For a bag?
It's not a bag. Birkin.
Now, in Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, he lays out that the most successful companies don't actually advertise their products with a what, but they create this culture and community centered around the company's why. And as consumers, we actually find companies that then we identify with and we buy into their culture or their why. An example that Sinek actually uses in his book is Apple and their white headphones. Now, in one of the original iPod commercials, okay, we see like these vector illustrations of people and they're dancing in front of like a solid color background, and they're also holding on to the white iPod and they have the white headphones in, okay? And they're like just dancing to a really popular song at the time. There's no information about the iPod's memory, its size, its cost, warranty, features, like technical stuff, none of that. The commercial is just a vibe. And that is why the commercial is so iconic today. It appealed to the emotional connection of the customer that like you, a 20-something, or in my case, a high school senior, identified with that energy, and you wanted to like publicly display how you were like a part of that group or community. Like Apple was cool. Well, that's what all the cool kids had. And like the white headphones was a way that we could identify others for being cool, like Apple. It's all really smart. Keeping Sinek's theory in mind, Hermes has one of the strongest whys I've ever seen. But unfortunately, it's a bit hidden, and the conversation around Hermes on the internet is not actually an accurate reflection of the company's values and ethics. Their why.
They're only buying those bags because it is a display of wealth and like a class status symbol.
And that's Hermes' own fault. Let me be clear. That is Hermes' fault. And I also think that they're aware of this because in the 60-minute interview where they are discussing the mythology around this quota bag and the Hermes game.
Hermes has been accused of, creating this artificial scarcity to pump up demand.
Pierre Alexis claims that they don't do that and that Hermes doesn't even have a marketing department.
But we don't have a marketing department at Hermes. So first of all, when I heard that, I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah, well, no.
And this is a mistake. This is a slip up. And it tells us two things. First, this 60-minute interview, in my opinion, is their attempt to reclaim the narrative around their brand because it has spiraled so far out of control that they're now being sued. 60 Minutes is a reputable news program, and thus it will hold a little bit more weight than like, say, Good Morning America or The Today Show in like swaying general public opinion about the brand, right? It was smart. It was a smart move, and I think it was actually pretty effective because it was that interview that started me down this whole rabbit hole. Like, I was really impressed with what he had to say and what I saw. The second thing is Pierre Alexis either lied or he demonstrated that he doesn't actually understand what marketing is. Both are kind of ooh. Hermes has to have some sort of marketing department. They hold public and private events for customers. They have an email newsletter, social media accounts, and even put in like full page color advertisements in Vogue. Those are all the responsibility of a marketing department. Now, it could be that they pay an agency to do that separately and it's not done in-house, even though at the time of filming this, at the end of December, they are literally hiring someone for a digital communications job in the corporate offices of New York, which is a marketing job, just by the way. Either way, someone is doing marketing for Hermes. I think it's this disconnect that fuels the issues and like rumors around the brand. They need to get their shit together, okay? And they need to work on their communication. And this is unfortunate because their why of being a company that respects the nature that inspires it, ensuring the preservation of its resources and its impact on natural environments and local ecosystems with an artisanal production model is amazing. And they celebrate this on their website, on their Instagram, and especially on their YouTube channel, which again, those are all forms of marketing. Hello. 6 years ago, they produced a film series highlighting like the artisans that they employ and like the small French towns and communities that they've invested in through the establishment of their human-sized production centers. In one video, I've like watched this video like 2 or 3 times now. We literally follow the mayor of one of these towns, and like Hermes had just opened up a leather manufacturing center. But not only is he like the mayor of this like small city, he's also a farmer. Like, he's talking about his day and like feeding his cows and his sheep, and like he's walking around in his like wellies just doing farmer shit. And then he goes and he puts on his little like tricolor sash and he's like, I'm also the mayor. Like, guys, we're talking deeply working class areas of France and impoverished areas of France that Hermes has committed to revitalizing. The best thing I can compare it to is like if Ralph Lauren looked at the Midwest and like West Virginia and like Indiana and Ohio and Kentucky and went, there, I'm gonna have us make clothes there. I'm gonna have us make bags there. And they invested in like building up our communities. The thing is, though, it's like, while that information is out there, you still have to go and look for it. You have to seek it out because it has not been successfully spread around and incorporated into their conversations with their customers. And so it's like a really bad game of telephone where the messaging has gotten really messed up. According to Hermes' website, they are present in 11 of the 13 regions of France, and they plan on opening one new production facility in one of the 16 métiers a year, which will create at least 300 new jobs. Additionally, of the 75 Hermes-owned production and training sites, 60 of them are in France. This includes tanneries, textile manufacturing, crystal, metal, and jewelry making. This investment into the country and the people of France is a pillar of Hermes' values. And in addition to job creation, I love this. In 2021, they established a school to teach and preserve traditional handwork that goes into the creation of leather goods. It is called the École de Hermes de Savoir-Faire, and it is accredited by the French government. It is completely free if you are accepted into the program, and 89% of the graduates are offered full-time positions at Hermes afterwards. Like, it is so successful that this year they've opened up 2 more training schools and centers, and they've expanded their course offerings. So there's now saddle stitching and like leather stitching, leather cutting, and then there's also just normal stitching on like a machine. It's amazing. Like, it's so incredible, okay? And like, honestly, the only reason that I'm not like running away to France to go work for Hermes is because you have to be fluent in French to go to the school, and I'm not. As someone though who has studied and practiced traditional hand sewing skills and trade work, and I am deeply passionate about those subjects and the preservation of handcraft, I cannot accurately express how incredible Hermes' business model is, like how inspiring it is. But you also won't find that information being discussed in Hermes haul videos or luxury videos or dupe discourse. You only know about this if you watched the 60-minute interview, your ADHD hyperfocus kicked in, and then you went digging through all of Hermes' websites until you found the information you were looking for. Like me. And like, guys, like, there's so much more about Hermes, like, and I don't have time to go into it because we got to stay focused on the actual topic at hand. But like, I write about their sustainability practices and their environmental impacts. Like, they are aggressively reducing their water use, single-use plastic, and they are like meeting every possible eco certification. They even keep track of every single repair they do, and they keep it as a part of their sustainability like model and practice and goals. In 2023, they completed 202,000 different repairs. That's what they want to do. They're proud of that. And also, if you're curious, 98% of their leathers are byproducts of the food industry. The other 2% does seem to be accounted for, like the crocodile leather, lizard leather, and ostrich leathers that they use. But those are sourced using sustainable farming practices that I read a lot about, and I just don't have time to go into, but I read a lot about them because they're very open about it in that universal registration document. If you're like looking for some like 300-page reading, like I did. It was great. It was awesome. I loved it. Keeping all of this in mind, we now know that $12,000 handbag is contributing to someone's education. It's uplifting working class communities. It's investing in a company that values its people and the environment. And this is part of the conversation that like Pierre-Alexis made when he was trying to discuss expensive versus costly during his interview. Because now owning an Hermes bag is not just about a display of rarefied wealth, like the lawsuit tries to argue. It's about supporting a company that you ethically align with. And the price tag becomes a lot more justifiable as a lifelong investment. In my like Abby's shopping math, if you were to allot $1 a day towards paying off that $12,000 purse, then it would take you around 30 years to carry that bag to get your money's worth. And when the bag is hand stitched out of the best leather available by a company that offers repairs, it should last that long. That is the point of the bag. Despite the mystery around the brand, their model is successful. They earned over 13 billion euro in revenue in 2023, with 1.7 billion going into payroll cost, and an additional 4,000 euro bonuses went to every single employee of Hermes, all 22,000 of them. They also offer shareholder opportunities to employees. 18,000 of the 22,000 employees are currently shareholders in the company. Genuinely, Hermes should be actually held up as the sort of zenith of slow and sustainable fashion brands that take care of their employees. They don't care about production numbers or making goods as fast and as cheap as possible to up their profits. Pushing that idea actually pissed Pierre-Alexis off in the interview.
Yeah, but you're talking about industrial production. You're applying your thinking structure of industrial production to craft. We're about craft. We're not machines.
So this disconnect around the purpose of a marketing department in the 60 Minutes interview is, to me, illustrative of Hermes's bigger problem, even though they don't need to promote their products because they don't have a revenue problem, and aggressively promoting their products in that sort of way does conflict a bit with their company ethics. The important messaging surrounding their why has been completely overshadowed by internet rumors fueled by celebrity culture and content creators. Instead of, you should buy Hermes because they're a great company that has all of these values, it's worth waiting years for a bag, it's now play the Hermes game, which actually centers the entire narrative of the brand around the worthiness, wealth, and specialness of the individual customer instead of the company's community. And it's that individualism that seeds the feelings of jealousy and discontent, and it is in direct conflict with the brand's ethics. Now, as a result, Hermes is losing control of their narrative. They look more like a predatory, capitalistic orange villain that shits in a gold toilet than a heritage brand with strong ethics and values. Part 3. Getting duped. Dupes are the calling card of Chinese drop shipping retailer AliExpress. Even the website's app has a reverse image search feature, a portal into the dupe shadowland. This environment where dupe culture has blossomed, shared across the four horsemen of the fast fashion Armageddon: AliExpress, eBay, Etsy, and worst of all, Shein. It's a nightmare of mass consumption, where it's not just luxury items that are duped, it's open season on all IPs. Small independent brands are constantly ripped off, and the $1 to $10 price tags are a singing canary for sweatshops, poor working conditions, and unfairly paid labor. The environmental cost is unmentionable. Just side note, Ken and I are in agreement that Amazon's also one of the four horsemen. Maybe not Etsy. Maybe Etsy is like a side demon. Anyways. In December, a Birkin dupe sold on Walmart's marketplace website and went viral over on TikTok. One of the biggest talking points in justifying why it's okay to buy this dupe was due to the price of actual Birkins.
It's a bag. There is zero reason to be spending that on a bag.
Essentially, this argument took one of 2 points of attack. The first was, LOL, the rich are upset, we have their bags and they look just like theirs, and that makes their butthole hurt and they're no longer special, wah, wah, wah. Or that buying the dupe was an act of breaking down the social class system and wealth disparity.
Death to all systems of power.
Any sort of attempt at sort of bringing the conversation points about how like fast fashion is just bad, period.
A polyurethane bag is not a luxury.
Was dismissed by many who believe that because the bag is a dupe of a luxury brand that is traditionally only available to a privileged few, that made the purchase somehow ethically acceptable. Unfortunately, this well-meaning but misguided attempt at sticking it to the rich ends up harming other marginalized groups, including those who could never even afford to buy the dupe because they're literally being paid pennies to make the thing.
I don't know the conditions that fake Birkin were made in, so I don't really want to take a risk on it.
So those who are buying dupes because it looks like an actual Hermes Birkin and then they style it with their little knockoff twillies and bag charms to mimic the wealthy influencers they see on social media with real Birkins are not getting one up on those who actually own Birkins or are harming them in any sort of way. Instead, what they're doing is they're actually funding fast fashion, which overwhelmingly harms women in impoverished countries. Also, those workins, I know. They also call it Hermes. The wit is witting. I will say that's very funny. Anyways, while there are like a couple of different types available, most of them are actually made out of polyurethane, so plastic. They won't last through years of wear and tear, and they won't decompose either. They'll eventually end up in a landfill or a trash pile like the ones in Chile or other countries throughout Africa, and they will continue to harm the communities and the delicate ecosystems that live there for millennia. For what? To project the illusion of rarefied wealth? Furthermore, the irony of claiming that by buying a dupe of a luxury handbag from Walmart, that you are somehow getting one up on the ultra-rich 1% is just like, that's impressive mental gymnastics, my friends, because the Waltons are literally billionaires, and Walmart is notoriously shitty for their working conditions and how they treat their full-time employees, because so many of them are actually on government assistance because they don't make enough money to be able to afford food at Walmart. So who actually wins in this game? In the ethics of dupes, I find it difficult to understand how, on one hand, it is broadly accepted and understood that when companies like Shein knock off independent designers and small companies, it's terrible. But when it's a dupe of a luxury good, it's okay and somehow also a political statement. I would actually argue that the success of luxury dupes is what actually encourages and emboldens companies like Shein to knock off smaller independent designers. Money talks, right? So by purchasing this dupe, you're telling the companies like Shein to make more dupes. While there isn't much brands can do in the name of copyright because you can't really copyright fashion, it's up to us as consumers to protect those who are at risk, especially if we care about class solidarity. And that means not buying dupes, but spending that money as responsibly as you possibly can. I also want to be really clear here. I am not shitting on everyone who shops at Walmart. I shop at Walmart. This is not about people who are looking for a purse or a bag within a budget and they find that style because that's what they like and that's just what they can afford. I'm not talking about those people. What I am talking about are people who are specifically going out and searching and purchasing the Walmart Birkin knockoff because it is a dupe and because it's cheap and because that means they can cosplay a real Hermes bag.
Even if I was extremely wealthy and had the money to buy an actual Birkin, I would never spend that much money on a handbag. I would just buy a nice fake of it.
That consumer behavior is promoting overconsumption, gross consumerism, and it's ultimately harmful to everyone. Make no mistake, okay? While yes, those who overconsume Hermes are helping support their business, their motivations behind these purchases are completely misaligned with the brand's ethics. Having customers with closets full of Birkins or Kellys was never the goal for Hermes. It has always been about creating a product that will last for decades, so you only need to purchase one or maybe two. Displaying multiple unused Hermes bags on your shelves in your closet as the background for your TikToks, sharing your tips and tricks on how to play the Hermes game, or discussing the wirkin dupe is just as disgusting as buying into a fast fashion product that's mass-produced in questionable factories with shitty materials that will never decompose. If you didn't have 20 fucking Birkins to overinflate your ego, there would be more Birkins to go around, thus ending the game. Quickly, to my millennials, did you just lose the game? You just lost. You're welcome. You can hate me in the comments, that's fine. The wirkin dupe promoters and over-consuming Hermes fashion influencers are actually, in my opinion, two ends of the fast fashion spectrum, because you can absolutely over-consume slow fashion, treating it like fast fashion, instant, fleeting, and disposable. And it's that mentality of greedy overconsumption and entitlement that fuels Cavallari and Glenoga's lawsuit. They're not suing Hermes to be able to buy one singular bag. They already own Birkins. That should last them their entire life. They want more Birkins. In September of 2024, the judge in California presiding over this case, it didn't see the validity in the complaint, stating that Hermes can run its business any way it wants, including making 5 Birkins a year and charging $1 million for them. Now, as of writing this video, the lawyers for the plaintiffs have requested more time to adjust and rewrite their complaint so that way it can possibly move forward in the court system. Ultimately, there's no way to know for sure whether or not Hermes has this game of requiring people to spend certain amounts of money and bother sales associates constantly because they want the bag that they want. And they have gone on the record denying its existence.
This is a diabolical marketing idea that can only come out of people obsessed with marketing.
Logically, looking at the numbers and their data, I don't actually think there's a game as the internet sees it. I think the time people spend playing the game for a Birkin or a Kelly bag is honestly just how long it can take for them to get them in stock or for your turn to come up in line. It's a waiting game because there just are not that many to go around. And yes, by keeping in contact and building a relationship with a sales associate, it would logically help possibly speed up the process. Ultimately though, the game is still one of the consumers making, not the company, because Hermes values time and employee welfare. You can't just walk in and demand a bag in most stores. Appointments are scheduled online, and what that does is ensures a luxury shopping experience for the customer, but also a balanced work schedule for the employees. By keeping these hand-sewn goods tucked away and hidden, they're kept clean and safe, which just demonstrates how much the company actually values their creation and the labor of their artisans. And this is why marketing is important, because it is just as easy to demonize those practices as it is to celebrate them. The public perception is dictated by whoever controls the narrative, which in this case of Hermes are randos on the internet. Finally, if you were to go somewhere else and buy a hand-sewn leather bag, like these small companies Tanner Leatherstein suggested in one of their videos where they were discussing Hermes, you're still going to be looking at a long wait time of several months and spending several thousands of dollars on a bag. That is the norm for a high-quality hand-sewn product and good. The fact that you can even buy anything on Hermes's website that is hand-sewn and have it shipped directly to your door is actually indicative of how much they do produce, and it is impressive. And so with that, my friends, I leave you with this. It is okay that not all of us can afford a $12,000 handbag. It is hand-sewn by a slow and sustainable fashion house that prioritizes quality over productivity and enriching their community. It should cost a lot of money. If anything, this discourse around the cost of Hermes products and their fast fashion dupes should remind us that clothing and accessories should cost more, and that cheap clothing is an indicator of low wages, poor working conditions, and negative environmental impacts. We should be comfortable paying good money for labor because fair wages ensure access to food, housing, and clean water, which should never, ever be a luxury. And if you're truly invested in dismantling archaic and damaging social structures, then it's important to try and be as conscious as possible on where you spend your money. Instead of buying a cheap dupe that harms the environment for the illusion of status, consider investing in the best version of the product you can buy, whether it's designer or not. Also, this coat is vintage, don't at me. A symbol of rarefied wealth, such that not even a global pandemic. Merch, baby. We got pins. We got nice 100% cotton totes with a zipper. Are we Gucci? Are we Gucci? Hi, Griff. Hi. Mama looks like a fur coat. Do you want a piece? That's my boy. That's my boy. Hi. Sorry, I don't know how to get that on my system. Darling, I just can't meet you for lunch today at Nobu. No. Juji is a pootie. You can also get a signed poster. I love this poster. It's so cute. It's really high quality. And it says fashion history is history because fashion history is history. I have no idea if that, I don't think that recorded. Cool. We'll read through that again. And I got a book bundle too with Bernadette. So if you guys want signed books from both of us, we have those too. Love you, bye. I'm gonna go eat dinner now.